Hello, this is David Stringer, publisher of Prescott eNews, with another edition of Prescott Talks. As we record this program today, July 6th, 2023, ballots have just gone out in our local city council election. But there's another issue that has captured the attention of the voters this year, and that is a proposal that has recently come to light to expand the Prescott rodeo grounds. There is a proposal that is being entertained by the City Council and by the Frontier Days rodeo folks to expand the rodeo, to turn it into a sort of year-round event center. Money has been appropriated by our state legislature. Today, we have two distinguished guests who are at the forefront of the discussion concerning the expansion of the rodeo grounds. We have Deb Thalasitis. Deb, thanks so much for coming in. And we have Ralph Hess. Thank you, Ralph, for coming in. Many of you who've been around Prescott for a while know who Ralph Hess is, former judge on the Yavapai Superior Court. But I'm going to let Judge Hess introduce himself and tell you a little bit about his background.
Well, thank you, David, and thanks for having us here today. As David pointed out, I've been a resident of Prescott for over 30 years. I served as an assistant city attorney with the City of Prescott Legal Department for 13 years, and retired from the Yavapai County Superior Court after serving as a judge for just short of 7 years. And ever since then, I've been active with local groups who are interested in what's best for the community of Prescott.
Thank you so much. Now, Deb, both you and Ralph, may I call you Ralph, sir?
Yes.
Both you and Ralph are involved in sort of a citizens initiative, sort of a petition drive to ask the City Council of Prescott to hold hearings or to hold a public comment period to kind of fully flesh out what's really being proposed here. Now, you both have petitions, as I understand it, but you're coming at it from a slightly different perspective. So, Deb, could you tell me what you're about, what you're trying to accomplish?
Certainly. I am a co-petitioner with Marty Siegel. Marty's lived here since 1959. I'm newer to Prescott. I'm a recovering city employee. Worked in a couple of different states. Our petition is, when this first came up, we didn't really know what was happening. So our petition is addressing the opportunity for citizen engagement on the part of City Council. At some point, something is going to need to go to the City Council.
And the reason for that is, Deb, why does it need to go to the City Council?
If they change the zoning, if they put in a site plan, if they adopt a master plan or a conceptual plan, all of those things could potentially go before the City Council. At this point in time, we don't know what is going to go before the council to kick this off. So our petition is addressing kind of the gamut of what could potentially go to council. Our ask is that we have a 60-day public comment period, and we have a minimum of 3 public hearings. Now, some of those functions already require a certain number of public hearings. We're just trying to establish a baseline so that all the viewpoints, as you pointed out in your intro, this has generated a lot of conversation. We think all the viewpoints need to get out in front of council to help them make a decision.
Deb, is there any kind of legal basis for what you're asking? If there's a petition presented, for example, if there's a petition presented to the council, do they have to have a public comment period? Are there any kind of legal requirements or legal strictures involved here?
Our basis for submitting the petitions is rooted in the city charter. And the council does have an obligation to respond to the request made by us or any citizen that brings a petition forward. In my particular case, the things that we're looking at, some of those are provided for in state law. What we're asking for is augmentation of that. And if you think about the process that was used with Save the Dells and the AED agreement, there was a lot more interaction between the council and citizens than what the law prescribes. And we think that's a really good thing.
Could you tell our viewers, give us some insight as to sort of the genesis of this? How did this idea of doing a petition, sort of where did it come from? Whose idea was it? Can you share some information with our viewers on that?
I think Judge Hess and I and some others are quite familiar with the city charter. And the genesis of it is when we started seeing all the competing, the dialogue, the competing visions. One of the challenges has been that what was presented, starting back, I guess the first public hearing we heard about was May 13th, and several people attended. And then we found out there were 2 held prior, but it wasn't well noticed. And then there was one very well noticed on June 6th. But the stakeholders involved in this have not been fully identified. So we've noticed neighbors are not considered stakeholders. Businesses around the rodeo grounds are not stakeholders.
And what is, if I may, what is your basis for saying this? They're not recognized as stakeholders. Recognized by who? They're clearly people who live in the neighborhood. They live there. They've got an interest. They're able to speak on this issue. Who is it that's not considering them stakeholders?
We're looking at the PFD master plan that was submitted to the council on March 28th, and they do list the stakeholders in that, and they've also shared that with the citizens in the public input sessions they've held. And we think that more can be done to outreach with neighbors. I think everyone that we've talked to is supportive of the rodeo, wants the rodeo to thrive. But I think there's a lot of conversation around how we get there.
Okay. Now, I've heard that there's another petition floating around, and it's called Save the Rodeo. Have you heard of this petition? Am I describing it accurately? It's a Save the Rodeo, Save Our Rodeo, something along those lines. Have you heard of this petition drive?
I've heard of the drive. I've not seen the petition myself.
I'm just wondering, are you aware of anybody who wants to stop the rodeo or take the rodeo away?
Not aware of anybody that wants to take the rodeo away. In fact, their current lease allows them to stay on the grounds through 2041 and manage the grounds. And then there's an extension that would put them on the grounds till 2046. So that's what's kind of puzzling.
And that's what the $1 a year lease,
yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, let me turn to Judge Hess here for a moment. You've got your own petition going. What is it that you're trying to accomplish?
What we're trying to accomplish with this petition is to have a 60-day comment period and 2 public hearings before any new terms are added to the lease between the city and Prescott Frontier Days. We had heard a presentation from some of the officials from Prescott Frontier Days indicating that they were looking to have new lease terms written up before July 1. And as a result, we felt that there was some urgency in making sure that we ask the city council to make sure that there's an adequate time for public input before the council members vote on any new lease terms. One of the motivations for me to personally get involved with this request is that there have been a number of leases that have been negotiated by the city of Prescott involving city land that did not have, in my opinion, adequate time for the public to provide input.
If I may just interrupt you here for a sec. You want to create the opportunity for public input. What would the form of that public input be? Would that be public hearings that were noticed, advertised, and that would be sort of open to the general public? Would it be a letter writing opportunity? What would the form of the public comment and public input be?
Well, actually, I'm envisioning all of that. What we're specifically requesting of the council now is to have the 2 public hearings. But in addition to the public hearings, the city council receives emails, they receive letters from constituents. You can send, anyone can send them their comments. You can write letters to the editor. You can
Come down and do a show on Prescott eNews. Right?
Exactly. So there are several ways that it can be done. My concern has been that the only thing that's really been required under the city charter for any type of lease of city property is for the city to negotiate the lease, put it up for public auction, or request bids. And so the city has quite often negotiated these leases. And under the practice that the council has at this time, agendas are usually posted on Thursday afternoons for the following Tuesday meeting. And so the public only has approximately 5 days in which to review any lease proposal upon which the city is going to act. And then they only have 3 minutes to present a comment at the voting meeting. And so council members are denied any length of opportunity to consider those comments because those comments are provided immediately before the vote.
So what would be your suggestion then? What would be your ask in terms of providing the public an opportunity to comment and providing council members an adequate opportunity to consider those comments? What would be your specific ask?
Our ask is in this petition that's going to be considered on July 11th at the voting meeting before the city council, is that the council set a 60-day comment period and schedule 2 public hearings within that 60-day comment period for the public to come in and make comments regarding any new lease terms that are going to be considered by the city council regarding the lease of the rodeo grounds between City of Prescott and Prescott Frontier Days.
All right, thank you. Deb, I want to turn to Deb again because, Deb, you're working with a committee, is that right? And could you tell us, is there any reason why you couldn't tell us some of the members of the committee and how you meet, how you make decisions, how you are sort of organizing the petition drive? And I'm not trying to get you to tell me something you don't want to tell me, but I think the more the viewers see, the more the viewers hear, I think the more support you're going to have.
Well, committee sounds a little formal. We're a group of folks that have worked together rather loosely in the past. We've identified there's some neighbors that are highly engaged, and we're working with them. So we sort of have this hub and spoke concept.
When you say neighbors, you mean neighbors around the
Directly
rodeo,
around the rodeo.
Neighborhood of the rodeo?
Who are very supportive of the rodeo, I should add. So that's why in your earlier question, kind of scratching our head a little bit about what are we saying?
Have you met anybody who didn't like the rodeo, or didn't think the rodeo was a good thing for Prescott and didn't support the rodeo? I mean, it's kind of, it's like mom and apple pie. We all like the rodeo. We all think it's a good thing for Prescott.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think people recognize there's going to be disruption in their lives for that time period, and it's a good event for Prescott, and we just say, let's, go enjoy ourselves and let's let the rodeo do what the rodeo does. So no, I've not heard a single word. And we've talked with a lot of the neighbors that are right around the rodeo. There is concern about the expansion. But again, that's not the topic of what we're going to the city council for. What we're going to the city council for is to say you need to hear from the businesses. You need to hear from the neighbors. You need to hear from the rodeo. You need to hear from the rodeo membership. They have their own membership. So our committee is not really central to this. It's about the people in this community.
Okay, and that takes me to my next point, and I'm going to address it to you, Ralph. In terms of the what you're trying to accomplish, correct me if I'm wrong now, you're not taking a position that the expansion of the rodeo shouldn't take place, or that the remodel or refurbishment of the rodeo grounds isn't a worthwhile endeavor. You're not taking a position pro or con. Is that right? In other words, all you're saying is we need to have more opportunity for public input. And in that public input, there may be people saying we need to do more. We should support this expansion. And there may be people who are raising objections to it of one kind or another. But you guys, in terms of your petition drives and your ask of the city council, are not taking a position one way or another. Am I right about that?
You're absolutely right. Both these petitions are seeking a process that we think allows informed, knowledgeable citizens to make comment, and have the council members be able to consider those comments before they make the substantive decisions on anything regarding a new lease or regarding any master plan or zoning changes. All of that is, we are not advocating pro or con on any of those substantive issues.
You use the word process. It's a process that you're trying to facilitate. It's not a result, a particular result. You're not prejudging the matter in any way, as I understand it. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct.
All right. Now, is there anything that I haven't asked you, either one of you, that you'd like to speak to? Any particular point that you'd like to speak to that I haven't thought to ask you? Anything, Deb, that you want to add to what you've already said?
I don't think so. I guess I do want to add something. I think the city council, this particular council, ran 2 years ago on transparency. And we think this will actually help in that endeavor for this particular council. We don't know when this decision is going to be made. It could happen after the election in November. And that's why we think it's important to get this codified, this action codified, so that whatever happens, it carries forward and that the public input can still happen.
All right. Well, thank you. And Ralph, anything that you wanted to add?
Nothing new, but I would like to reiterate that it would be helpful for any of your viewers who want to provide support for these two petitions, which again are just trying to open up the process, to please contact their council members, either by email, if you can post the email addresses,
fine.
Or if they have personal contacts with their council members, we ask that they please
All right.
do that.
Well, I was going to kind of try to wind up there and give you an opportunity to invite viewers to contact you if someone in the community that's seeing this program wants to get involved, wants to help you, wants to work with you. What do they do? Where do they go? How do they contact you? And if you could say it out loud, that's fine. And we'll put it up on the screen as well.
Okay, we have a website, prescottrodeo.com, and there's a contact form on there that people can fill out, and that information will get to us, and we'll be able to stay in touch with them for as long as they'd like to. But as Judge Hess just mentioned, the most important thing right now is contacting City Council and asking and supporting this process.
Okay, that's great. And Ralph, how do they reach you or reach the group that you're working with?
I'm not working with a group.
Okay,
so
you're just working as an individual at this point?
That's correct.
Okay.
On the lease petition, when I say I'm working by myself, I should point out that Deb's group was able to get 187 signatures of people who supported this petition within a day and a half, right before we submitted the petition. And this petition, one thing that we didn't touch upon, I guess that I could add, is that these petitions are authorized under the Prescott City Charter. Article 2, Section 18 provides the opportunity for any citizen of the city of Prescott to present a petition to the council, and they're required to act upon it within 30 days. And so those who created the Prescott City Charter saw this process that we're using to be a valuable asset for the city.
That's good to know. Thank you for adding that. All right. Well, I want to thank both of you for coming in. Ralph Hess, thank you so much. And Deb Thalasitis. Am I close?
You got it.
Thank you so much. We're going to put your names up on the screen and the contact information. Thanks again for coming in. And I'm David Stringer. Thanks for watching this episode of Prescott Talks.